Takes me a minute to figure these things out. It's like I feel like I've gotten it and then I don't have it and then it just goes like, I think I got it. Nope, I don't got it now. What am I doing? So yeah.
Nobody puts Jenny on hold. When she's ready to go in for the podcast, you better be ready. That's all.
Well, it was just so funny because I'm like, hey, are you ready? No, you're
nobody
texting somebody. Are you ready for the podcast, or do you just want to let me? I'll just let you go, and you can text people today.
Sure. No, I'm ready.
You don't. Yeah, I was going to say you don't.
We're live. We're live with Jenny White
and Michael Grande.
Well, no, I said we're. I'm part of the. I'm part of the group that is the Everyday Here for Jenny White podcast.
Oh, okay. Earl's daughter says, I'm ready and on time. Go, girl. You go, girl. All right. So we have Becky waiting in the wings. I'm very excited about this. The sad thing is I tend to think people are going to go, oh, that's policy stuff. And I don't really get into policy. You just need to tell me what to think about it. But the problem is,
yeah.
What is it?
This was a shirt I actually wore during COVID.
Okay.
Social distancing and wearing a mask in public since 1978. Good old Michael Myers, the psycho. And that's what I thought about most of those people that were going so crazy with all their stuff out there.
How do you really feel about it, Michael?
Hey, I was kicked out of a lot of stores. I can tell you that.
So was I.
Hey,
or I'd sneak in. Sneak in and then
one time I went into Sprouts and I literally had 3 of these trendies following me through the whole store. I just needed to get a bag of real salt. And these trendies were following me, and this kid, he was just like, you can't be in here without a mask. I go, sure I can. I said, I am right now. I said, you have a mask on, you're safe. I said, it's all right. I'll be out of here in a minute. So they met me at the checkout with the manager. The manager comes over and he's like, we can't check you out. I was like, why not? He's like, you don't have a mask on. He goes, if you want, you can go stand outside and you can give us your money and we'll check it out and we'll bring it out there to you. I was like, no, I'm right here. I said, I'll just check out. And they didn't have the self-checkouts in there at that time.
Oh, okay.
So I just pulled out the salt was like $8. I pulled out 10 in cash. I just dropped it on the floor and I said, buy some extra mass with your change. And I just walked out. I literally did that. I had my 9-year-old at that time was with me and he was like going ballistic. He's like, Dad, we can't do that. You're stealing. I go, I'm not stealing. I said, I left him the money. It's right there.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, before we get on, Becky, and I don't want to wait too long because she's got a great show for us today. A lot of really good information. So I kind of wanted to talk.
Yeah.
That's great. I love you, ladies. You're the best. All right. So before we get on today, so Michael, you and I have been talking about the Save Oklahoma plan since we had Jim Shaw on the show last Wednesday. And, you know, I mean, we had a pretty good conversation about it, I thought. And, you know, both of us were really like, I don't like the E-Verify. You know, I'm not really, you know, nuts about that. And, you know, it kind of a little, it bothered me at the time because I actually said it. I don't like purity tests or like loyalty tests. So if you don't like one, then you're out, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of figured, okay, well, so you don't like the one thing. It's not that big of a deal. You know, there are 7 of the things I like, 6 out of 7. So what difference does it make? Well, apparently that's not the way it was supposed to go. And you weren't supposed to sign on if you didn't agree with all 7 items. So I had a conversation with Representative Shaw after the podcast, and then I talked to you, and you and I decided that it would be better to get off the plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
well, I don't like the fact that, you know, it's either, no matter what it is, I don't like mandatory anything, but I don't like the fact of, you know, if we're going to put a plan together, grassroots, whatever, that's fine. But I don't like the all or nothing. You're either with us or against us, like the George Bush kind of deal, you know, and that just seems like it's kind of an establishment type of tactic, you know, and I don't like that.
Well, it was like 7 things. I mean, if it had been like 3 things, I don't know. But, you know, you and I agreed with the other 6, you know, we're like, but here's the thing that really kind of got me. And I like Rep Shaw. I mean, I don't have a single problem. And you guys, I'm not going to fight with you. I see all the fighting on social media right now going on with the grassroots. And I'm going to tell you, you are buying the elitist BS. If we're going to fight about this and start ripping each other apart, and I don't like you if you don't like this, and you don't like this, if we're going to do that, we will lose. We will lose, and I will blame all of you playing this stupid game. I'm just saying. I'm saying what I'm saying, and I'll tell you what I'm saying, and I'll be truthful about it. It is stop it. I don't want to see any more. Don't bring that crap on my page. Stop. We have to be together. A house divided against itself will fall. That's biblical. If you don't like it, just do what we did. I called up Representative Shaw. I just said, hey, you know, I hate to do this, but you know, can we maybe change the wording to say, you know, we're really going to, you know, work on this illegal immigrants getting, you know, Oklahoma jobs thing and just make it kind of a general thing. Well, that's kind of that's not where he wanted to go with it. And so I thought, well, you know, all the rest of them are kind of generic. So I thought, but it's his thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to fault him or get mad at him or get mad at somebody who doesn't agree with me or get mad at you if you're not going to be on the plan or call you names. I'm not doing any of that. So you can do your worst, but even with my knee, now I may throat punch you because I've just had enough and my knee hurts. But you don't push me, and then it won't happen. Otherwise, I'm copacetic with everybody. Everybody be copacetic with everybody else. If you don't agree, just do what we did. Can you please take us off? We would prefer that it was more generic, and we don't like mandates. And I just, I got I just could not get okay with it in my spirit. I tried, but I've spent 15 or 17 years fighting data collection,
Yeah.
And I just thought, this isn't me. So anyway, and you didn't like it either. So anyway, we are not members of the Save Oklahoma plan right now. Does that mean that we don't like Jim Shaw or support him? Absolutely not. We absolutely support Jim Shaw. We just are not comfortable with the way the plan is worded. If it gets changed, we'll reevaluate, right, Michael?
Yeah. Well, and it's like, to me, it just falls in line with kind of everything else. The bad guys or the people breaking the law or whatever, they're going to get around the system regardless. They're going to still be paying cash. They're going to get around the E-Verify. They're, it's just like the bad guys are going to commit crimes. The bad guys are going to, still have guns where there's gun-free zones, whatever. I mean, that's just how it is. I just don't think the mandatory side of that is the proper way to do that.
Well, and Lisa says if we're fighting with each other, we can't fight the tyrant. Satan knows exactly what he's doing, and that's just 100%. Thank you, Earl's daughter. I need that. So Lisa said, I don't personally understand the anger toward E-Verify since it's been around for decades. Educate me. And I don't have anger against it. I just look at it like this. This is funny because you were talking about Sprouts, right, earlier. And sorry, but I just went to Sprouts yesterday, and they have and I don't know why it caught my attention, but they have an E-Verify sticker on the window saying that we're part of E-Verify. So if I wanted to go and be an employee at Sprouts, they would make me fill out an I-9 and they would actually turn it in. So even though I look pretty waspy, right, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, I mean, you can't discriminate. So it doesn't matter that I speak like an American and look like what you would call an American or Central, or whatever you want to call it. I don't do DEI, so don't go down that road with me, or I'll just anyway. So everybody gets looped in, right? So it doesn't matter, everybody has to do it. And it is a database. And one of the things, look up Knoxie, Knoxie on X. So she's at Knoxie on X. And if you'll look up Knoxie, she's done a lot of research on this, and she had a lot of really great comments, and she was kind of part of the reason why I was like, now I'm even less comfortable with it than I was. So a lot of it has to do with just the dragnet of data collection, which, none of us should really like. And what happens if they, because they still are pushing the real ID. I mean, lots of us have not gotten it and won't, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to try to push it into a real ID type system. And it's just, I don't know. Not only that, like you said, Michael, and I put a lot of this in the blog, like you said. So how does E-Verify solve the problem that woman said? Remember, she said, well, I had my roof redone, and he showed up with like 7 clearly non-English speaking immigrants to do the roof, knowing that he was going to pay him in cash. Well, how does E-Verify solve that problem? So anyway, and like Gracie said, I'm going to go with what Gracie said.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Gracie? Hallelujah for you. Okay. Knowing Sprouts uses E-Verify. Lisa. All right. Now that's enough of that, because I don't want to take up any more of Becky's time, and we've gone, almost 10 minutes on that. Oh, hold on. that was my point with the whole thing. It only made more work for law-abiding citizen business owners, not to mention I'm sure the state will charge business owners to abide by the new laws. And so there is that. And again, you know, you and me, Michael, are the hey, leave me alone government kind of people.
Yeah.
That's not leave me alone. I mean, when you mandate something, I mean, how many years have we spent screaming at the legislature, you can't mandate this on schools, and then tell me you can mandate this, but you don't want mandates. I mean, yeah. I cry BS on all of this stuff. So it's just, oh gosh, Dorn has a big one. I'm conflicted, but to say we don't need a mandatory database and red tape requirements for small businesses employees in Oklahoma today, we have, and you're right. I mean, we do. There's no question about that. And I don't want to argue about it. I just want people to understand it doesn't make me comfortable, doesn't make you comfortable. It's not something that, I mean, I couldn't get comfortable with it. And so we're just going to beg off. But that, again, that doesn't mean that I'm willing to fight with anybody about it, because I'm not. I love you all. And I'm not willing to fight about it. And I'm not willing to not like Rep Shaw or, whatever. I'm just not willing to do it. I just, we're just uncomfortable with that. And that's the end of it. Right?
Correct.
Okay, let's bring on Becky. Becky's nodding her head. And she's like, are you going to ever put me on?
No, I'm glad you're talking about that. I saw the post going back and forth on social media yesterday. I was like, oh, dear Lord. And
dear
Grassroots
Lord.
just handed. Yeah. So hopefully we can get it figured out, but at least we're able to talk. So as long as we're talking to each other and not screaming at each other, then we can get it figured out.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to take us all. And if we don't decide that, here's the thing. And this is the last, I swear, Beck, this is the last thing I'm going to say. If we're Christians, isn't the concept of grace central to everything in our tenancy? Right?
Exactly.
So that means if I don't like what you say, but I like you, I just go, well, you know what? We don't agree on that. But you know what? I really love you, but I just don't agree with this. And if we can't do that, honestly, guys, with the absolute poisonous crap that I've seen on social media, you guys deserve to lose. If this is really what you're going to do and how you're going to act, I just may quit and go, have at it, guys, because I'm not going to play the games. I'm going to try to get along with people and stand for my beliefs, and that's what I'm going to do.
Oh, you're not quitting, Jenny. We know you're never going to quit.
Who knows? All right, Becky, I'm pulling in your slideshow. Maybe.
Okay.
Am I? Okay, there I am. Okay, so let me introduce you by way of saying this. So you have a Substack. I wish that I hope you're going to continue writing things. I love that David Arnett from Tulsa Today published this Substack. And guys, if you go back to Rumble and the other post that I made, I did publish the URL to her Substack in there because I would like you to read it. Again, I know it's policy, but this is really super important. And if you'll read it, she'll explain, why as we go along. But it's more than just policy, and you need to know about it. But Becky, it was an excellent article.
Thank you.
I mean, there might be something that you write sometime and I'm like, ooh, that was a stinker, but who knows? But so far, everything you've written, I just loved, and I loved this one. So talk about this and kind of why, talk about this. Why is it important to all of us that kids aren't reading?
You opened with the $1 million question. But if you think about it, literacy affects almost anything that we do in a day. And so the fact that we're graduating students, let's see, our graduating classes or incoming college classes, 50% need remediation and either literacy or math. Harvard University had its first math remediation course this year.
And is that,
and so
well, when you say remediation, just put that in context compared to like college kids coming out in 1990 and kids now. I mean, have they lowered the standards on top of that remediation so it's even worse, or is it just we're not doing a good job now compared to then, or what do you think?
the standards have changed a lot, and depending on the different standards that you're measuring things by, then you could definitely say that. Like Oklahoma standards, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Since the rewrite in 2016, those standards are very vague and almost empty, and so they're hard to measure anything against. But yes, absolutely, the requirements for college level remediation courses have dropped, and so there's more struggling. And sorry, I don't have all that data right here for us, but in short, yes.
Well, I just wanted to maybe make the point that it's probably exponentially worse than just being worse than 10 or 20 years ago. It's probably, at levels worse than what we really think it is, or led to believe.
It's astounding. Yes, absolutely.
Well, get into your slideshow because I want people to see what you've come up with. It's important.
Well, okay, sorry. So going into what we're talking about and how those standards, how our students' abilities have kind of dropped over the years, and we're noticing it, and it's showing a lot. It's popping up a lot in mainstream media. And so recently there's a lot on Substack that X is just full of all sorts of talking points and data about this. And so it's been relatively easy to do a deep dive into it, and at the same time extremely disheartening as we find out just how bad of a situation we're in for literacy. But the thing that has been catching my attention is the conversation surrounding what is being called the Southern Surge. And so I've been doing a deep dive into literacy policy and the different things that are happening in Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama. And so that's what we call the Southern Surge. And Fox and Friends has been having fun with the concept of the Southern Surge and is really trying to put this big red spin on it. And they're framing it as triumphant red state revolutions, conservative leadership embracing phonics, rolling back progressive excesses, and suddenly transforming struggling readers into proficient scholars. And it's a great idea, but it's not really what's happening. And so this type of storytelling is letting Oklahoma off the hook. And we're leaving about 3 out of 4 of our students as struggling readers.
3 out of 4, Becky, holy mother of pearl.
Right whenever we approve a record-setting budget, right? The state is just approved, $4 billion? And then they're going to get 1.8 from the federal grants and different things on top of that. So we just approved a $5.8 billion budget, and we are ranked in the bottom 5. Everybody wants to say, don't listen to Wallet Hub. Why are we letting Wallet Hub name us 50th? Well, there's many different metrics, and Oklahoma is not faring well in any of them. And so, and for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm a teacher that I grew up in Central Texas, and I was trained as a teacher in Texas, and I received my doctorate out of Texas with a focus on educational leadership. And so my dissertation was a correlational analysis of effective coaching and teacher retention and classroom instruction. And so that's what I brought with me whenever I came to Oklahoma. And I was so excited. I was going to be the high school instructional coach, and my daughter was going into 1st grade. And then I was, woke up to Oklahoma education. And so for the last 5 years, I've been trying to understand why it is that our kiddos can't read. Because if you know me and my story, my daughter is extremely dyslexic and a number of other things. And so we've been trying to figure out how to teach her to read, and doing that in Oklahoma has been very interesting. So let's back up a second and look at reading instruction as a whole, because understanding these key concepts on this slide will help you understand what's going on in the whole inner bureaucracy thing when we get there later. So there's primarily, historically, for about the last 200 years or so, an argument that's been going on. How do we teach kids to read? Do we do the whole word method, or structured literacy, explicit phonemic instruction? And then there's been sort of a middle ground that mixes the two. And so looking at this, the whole word method, this treats words as visual logos to memorize. And so you'll see a lot of sight words. The hot word now that people like to call them is heart words. And so we're not doing sight words and we're doing heart words. Yes, absolutely barf. If you see your kiddo coming home with a list of sight words to memorize, this is a big red flag that your school is not following a systematic phonic instruction. The brain just isn't wired to memorize all the words in the English language. Now, there's been a long-standing theory, and since the 1980s on, technology has caught up enough that we can map the brain and see exactly how it learns to read. And from those research studies, a body of research has grown called the science of reading. And it's based off of the research in brain mapping and numerous studies and all sorts of things that tell us exactly how students most efficiently learn how to read. And we call this structured literacy now. And then we have balanced literacy. And that's a hybrid, and it dilutes phonics with cueing. And so you guess from the context, the pictures, the syntax, and it encourages students to skip sounds for meaning. And ultimately, it leads to confusion. And if you're looking at literacy at all, the best podcast to go to understand all of these concepts is the podcast Sold a Story. And in it,
SOUL.
sold, like bought and sold.
Oh, okay, good. Glad we got, okay. Sold to story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sold a story, because ultimately there's a whole group of teachers, especially if you're an elementary teacher from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. There were these programs, and there are balanced literacy programs, and they made reading easy and fun and exciting. But ultimately what it did was let teachers off the hook of actually knowing the English language and how to teach it. It made it where all you gotta do is 3 things. What is the context? What could make sense? What could this word be? What's the first letter, and what type of word would fit with? Look at the picture. What's happening in the story? Looking at everything else except the letters in the word, and identifying the letters, connecting those with sounds, and then connecting that meaning to what is that word. And so, and I have a broader theory about this I'll talk about later, but the balanced literacy programs made teachers feel like rock stars, and they made them feel good about themselves, because English is hard. It's a hard language. It's hard to learn.
English is.
And yes, and even more difficult to teach. And so when you think about the mindset and mentality of people that would go to be elementary teachers, going into in-depth word study and knowing all the matrices of words, they're not really balanced. Some people, that stuff is great, and that's how I am. I love digging into these things, but a lot of the times elementary teachers have different things as their priorities. And so these programs it made teachers feel like they were doing an awesome job. They were excited. They were happy. They were expensive. So schools were just forking dollars over into them. And the effect size, now that we have the research, is only 0.1 to 0.3, where structured literacy's effect size is 0.5 to 1. And so it's a big difference. And we're coming up on it, kind of behind the curve in Oklahoma. And that's what my research showed here. So let's jump back to the Southern Surge, because the Southern Surge is exciting and people are really wanting to understand, what did these 4 states do? And so we're talking Mississippi, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Alabama. And the big story here is Mississippi. And in 2013, Mississippi initiated a series of very smart, layered moves. And so a lot of people look right at the first policy, the Literacy-Based Promotion Act. And I got to hear a wonderful speaker this last Wednesday that explained that it was actually a series of policies, and the leaders at the state level and in the State Department of Education, and then the people on the ground, they were all on the same page, and they really understood what they needed to do and the hard work they needed to accomplish. But it all started with the 2013 Literacy-Based Promotion Act. And this is where they mandated K-3 screeners, 3rd grade retention, but it isn't just 3rd grade retention as, okay, you're in 3rd grade and you can't read, you can't reach these metrics, you're staying, and you just got to repeat the whole year over again. It's more, they're using the screeners to identify those gaps where the kids are and really giving them the remediation and tools that they need to be able to grow.
So targeted remediation, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's doing the small things right, essentially. And they're, like I said, on the same page. And that's a big aspect of it. Louisiana has been doing similar growth. Louisiana had the biggest jump in a single year. So they jumped 10 points. And overall, their growth has shown an 8-point jump. Tennessee did a big overhaul in their teacher colleges and teacher prep, and they're seeing some really good, a big thing that they're seeing is a 15% remediation drop.
Wow.
And so, and then Alabama, they're working hard too. They're enforcing K-3 screeners, doing real phonics focused PD, and they're auditing their vendors. And so they're really looking at the materials that they're spending money on and making sure that only quality materials are on that approved list for schools to choose from. And so the hot topic in education right now is to figure out the Southern Surge playbook and emulate it. And so everybody is trying to like at Oklahoma, they're talking about the Oklahoma Miracle at that conference from last week. And it was a great conference, but
you mean the one where they want everybody into a database because they know that the database is going to help the kids learn?
There was a panel all on data, and I wanted to know more about how they were going to use the data, and they kind of focused on why they need the data. And so that's an issue that I'm kind of, it's real similar to what we're dealing with in the Oklahoma plan. On the one hand, we need to be able to have accountability and transparency. But on the other hand, in your heart of conservative hearts, do we support centralized databases?
And we don't, and we never will.
Yeah. And so that's the problem there. And so somehow we have to get past the transparency and accountability argument that counters centralized databases and figure out a better way. So there's a conversation that I hope that we have, because we need the transparency and we need the accountability, but we have those data points. Do we need an additional? I don't know. That's a hornet's nest that a lot of people are trying to figure out right now, and I hope they do. But it's touchy.
Well, let me mention this. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
Well,
Michael.
just real quick, who's the product? I mean, who put that Southern surge in place? Was it like each state's Department of Education? Was it the legislature? Who's more responsible for that action in general?
That's a good point. It takes the policies. So they needed the policies to really solidify no more queuing. And so all of these southern states at this time period, we're seeing 2013 to 2015, and they made that choice 10 years ago to go full on systematic phonics. Where if you look at Oklahoma, our policy did not do that. And our standards are so vague that they allow almost any kind of instruction until the Strong Readers Act. In 2014, Oklahoma passed the Strong Readers Act and it said no more queuing. And now we're having to go through and find all the queuing. And it's so embedded that it's going to take an overhaul. It's going to be a lot of work.
Well, here's the interesting thing to me. So when we were studying Common Core years and years ago, we found that there was a law in place that was put together by the then chairman of the Common Education Board or committee that basically said you had to use phonics to teach reading in Oklahoma. It's never been repealed to my knowledge. So to me, Becky, this has always been one of those vendors come in to a school and go, hey, we have this new reading program, blah, blah, blah. And hey, we can give you a kickback for the da-da-da. And so instead of doing what the law says, they do something else. But then the parents don't know what the law says. So the parents can't, and so many parents don't pay attention. They can't go, oh, well, you know what? My kid has to be taught phonics and you're not teaching him phonics. And that's what the law says. And then even when I went back to look at the law some time ago, but I don't remember even where it is. How are you going to enforce that law? Even as me as a parent went to the school and said, you're not teaching my kid phonics. That's illegal. What are you going to do? The school just look at you and go, so? I mean, it sucks.
It does. And these balanced literacy programs, one that is super, super popular, it comes out of the University of Columbia, and it's based off of, right? Lucy Calkins' unit of study is what the program is. And it gives isolated workshops in phonics. And so there's lots of different components in this program. So you're doing lots of different things, but you're teaching phonics sort of in isolation as a void. And you're kind of giving it to the kiddos that need it. And it's one of those things that's like, look, we're teaching short A. Here we are, short A. And it's including not only CVC basic words, but also digraphs and blends and multi-syllable words. They're teaching short A, which is like the rudimentary foundation, but just throwing everything on the back end of it too, instead of really systematically going step by step. Here's short A in the CVC, and then, we're going to do short A's again whenever we're introducing blends. And then again, when we're introducing digraphs. And so we're recursively bringing in these aspects that we're learning and really building strong readers. Our curriculum that's doing that is building strong readers. Our curriculum that's teaching it like the units of studies and the workshop method, or, random blast of phonics, where we're using the terminology, but we're not really doing all the things, is what a lot of the curriculum and a lot of the Oklahoma approved curriculum is doing. And that's why we have that 0.1 to 0.3 effect size, because it's just kind of random, not just throwing spaghetti on the wall, but throwing the whole buffet on the wall and seeing what sticks. And so,
before you go on, can I throw in a couple of comments? Because we've had some good ones.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Earl's daughter says that this topic I take very personally. I pulled my son out of public schools when he went from reading at a 3rd grade level in 1st grade to struggling to read by 3rd grade. Oh my goodness. And then Sarah says, copying Mississippi is not going to work. Now, Sarah's a special ed teacher, I think, right, Sarah? Copying Mississippi is not going to work in Oklahoma. We already have legislation directed to early dyslexia screening. We already have student databases, the OSSIS, OSIIS. We already have RTI and MTSS. I don't know what that is, special ed programs. And then she goes on and says, retaining students in 3rd grade is a bad idea, and education advocates worked hard to repeal that 5 to 6 years ago. If a student isn't reading well in 1st grade, remediation should be implemented. If a student cannot pass reading proficiency in 2nd grade, then students should be evaluated for IDEA, qualifying disabilities, to get IEP support and not be held back for learning disabilities. Now, I want you to talk about that. Then she says the last thing, Walters had the right plan to hire more special ed teachers. We need properly trained early into elementary education. So thoughts there?
Sarah has great points. These are all spot on. And we can't emulate Mississippi's model. A big core component of Mississippi's model is the coaching. They had coaches, 2 literacy specialists for every school. Well, they have 140 schools in Oklahoma, in Mississippi. So pulling in, that's still a lot. 280 reading specialists, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Oklahoma has 512 districts. And
I thought it was like 640 schools or something. It's ridiculous.
It is. We do not have the capacity of specialists to be able to pull off the Mississippi model the way that Mississippi has done it. And so there's going to have to be a governance working on fixing some of the structures in education to be able to do what we need to do on that aspect of things. But there's a lot of stuff that we can do now that's going to help our kids, like right now, that we could be doing better and different. And what she said about training our early elementary teachers, that's that's everything. And so now, yeah, that last point, it's hard to hire enough specialists to help us, because we're hurting really bad in Oklahoma. There's a lot of things that we have to fix on the literacy front. And so we don't have over 12,000 specialists to get into our schools right now.
Well, something that just came up to the top of my head, I'm just really curious to think what you think about this. So when my mom was alive, one of the things that she did all the time was she was involved in, oh gosh, I'm going to forget what the name of the program was, but it was a program where churches would go into schools and take kids who struggled with reading and math and that kind of thing. And they'd take them to a church and they give them snacks and they'd help them. I don't understand, why can't we get volunteers? Why can't we train volunteers to do this and then actually help with the phonics type literacy at schools? Why is that such a horror show?
Wouldn't that be such a great idea? I would love to see like a civic literacy brigade.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of people that are great with children, and maybe they're retired or, not where they have a normal schedule, that we could train them in the science of reading and give them tools, like real easy to use tools that they can go work one-on-one. That would be an amazing thing. I would love for something like that.
Well, Sarah actually says we do have volunteer reading support programs in many districts. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Sarah, how do you get them in other districts then? Do you just tell parents, hey, go, to your school board and say, hey, we need this? I mean, how does that work?
I heard that at the conference, that somebody said that there is something to do that you can, they are churches and public libraries. I mean, out here in the Panhandle, I think that what Sarah's pointing at is opportunities in communities that are involved with their schools and are civic minded to start with. And we have wonderful neighborhoods, wonderful silos of communities like that in Oklahoma, but they're really few and far between. And one point of that, of why we don't have wonderful districts everywhere, is this topic is actually really contentious, and it has been since the 60s. And it's part of the larger conversation called the reading wars. And I really thought that the reading wars were over. I thought it was a past tense thing. And then I experienced what I've experienced trying to teach in Oklahoma. And I'm like, oh, dear Lord, the reading wars are alive and well, and I'm on the wrong side of them here. And so in Texas, it seemed like they were gone. And don't get me wrong, they're struggling with literacy in Texas as well. But structured literacy has always been a very strong component in Texas education. And so let's back up and talk the history here real quick. So from the 1960s to the 2010s, late 20-teens, there's been this sort of push and pull in literacy instruction. And balanced literacy, this real nice lady from New Zealand was brought over, I'm pretty sure, by the University of Ohio. Anyways, they brought her over because she created this wonderful program called Read and Recovery. And it is an intensive first grade intervention program that's supposed to help kiddos catch up. So we're identifying them early on, we're catching them up. Costs about $10,000 a kiddo. And they pushed this throughout the United States, and it was a real popular program until the research started showing it had almost null effect. What she had done was studied.
For $10K a kid, it had almost null effect.
Yep. Because what she did was research what kids do when they read. Well, she's sitting there watching, because most of it was qualitative or quantitative analysis, and she was watching kids read. And a kid that isn't struggling reader, he just reads. They just automatic. A struggling reader, they do things like, okay, what's this word start with? What could fit in there? What's the picture showing? Oh, what's happening in the context? And so really, Read and Recovery was teaching our kids how to be struggling readers, because that's what she was able to observe. And it was a very popular program. Yeah. And then, like I talked about a little bit ago, and all of this is really captured much better than what I can do through that Sold a Story podcast. But then Columbia University produced a program by Lucy Calkins, and that's the units of study. And so you're doing different workshops on the different aspects of being a strong reader. And then Fountas and Pinnell produced their guided reading libraries. And this is pretty much making sure that our kids are only able to do what they should, the bare minimum of what they should be able to do. And so the science is really showing us that leveled readers are hurting our kiddos. And so these core programs really dominated the literacy landscape through this entire time. And it wasn't until COVID that they're sending these worksheets home, they're sending these books home, and parents are now all of a sudden having to be the experts. And they're like, why won't you just sound out the word? The kids
has Common Core.
Well, kids have been taught balanced literacy. You don't sound out the letters. And there's something there, because Kit Kat came home and I had the exact same situation. She was in first in kindergarten during COVID, and I'm watching her read, and she barely glances at the word, says the wrong word, and is going on. And it's like, no, look at each letter. And she wasn't able to sound things out. And so that's whenever I realized there was a problem. And we went down the special ed route to understand all the problems. It turns out she, on top of dyslexia, which is, neural pathways not developing right in the brain to be able to arrive at the ultimate goal of literacy, she also had a visual process. And so, and it was actually Linda Murphy that helped us find this, because a lot of people do tracking, and they'll test for tracking to make sure if the 6 eye muscles around the eye are strong enough to be able to follow the words and understand. And then there's a whole thing with the brain processing all those things. Well, Kit Kat, the muscle inside her eye, so not the 6 main muscles around the eye, the actual muscle inside her eye that focuses on the letters, it was underdeveloped. And so we needed to build that strength up. And we've been going to specialists since then on top of the systematic phonics and all those things. She's 5th grade and on level. Well, working on it. 5th graders are, you know what that's like, Michael. Are they really on level?
Yeah.
Did you just call Michael a 5th grader?
He has a 5th grader.
I know, I'm just teasing.
Okay.
Okay, I have to go let dogs out, but I'll be right back. So keep going. I'll be right back.
On the backdrop of this, we have all of the research going on. And so they have these intense brain scans called fMRIs, and they're showing sound letter mapping as kiddos are building all of these strengths. And so structured literacy really, was a theory until the technology was able to catch up and then show that, no, this is really the most effective way to teach a kiddo how to read. And in 2001, whenever Common Core, or whenever, the big rollout there of No Child Left Behind, not Common Core, sorry. It had such a violent reaction to it that anything connected with No Child Left Behind was not going to be received well. And one of the foremost people in the science of reading that's done all of this research, his name's Reed Lyon, and he was instrumental in producing what was called the Reading First Initiative. And this was under Bush 1, and they spent $1 billion a year to fund it. But it was so scripted, so structured, and so everything that was not the rock star programs of, read and recovery and units of study and guided reading, that it completely flopped. And despite having a 0.5 to 1 effect size, teachers hated it. And so it really fell flat. So with us understanding those things, I missed the key part here. COVID is what helped us see all of this stuff, is that parents were working with their kids one-on-one, and they were realizing, hey, why won't you sound this out? No, really, why won't you sound out the word? There's something wrong here. Yeah. And then we're getting all these reports of teenagers graduating high school, not being able to read. And now this larger conversation about the surge. And so we're really getting to understand, what do we need to do to fix this problem?
Well, I'll tell you real quick, Becky, he probably, I guess he was 4th grade at that time, right after COVID. But he would read, and he would just read, and it would sound like it would make sense. It would sound correct. But if I actually sat there and looked at the word, then he was just replacing the word with whatever word he thought he was looking at, or one way or another. And he got really good at it. I'm like, back up. So like when you said that about, like looking at the letters, and I mean, it just reminded me of that, because my own son was getting pretty proficient in just completely substituting whatever word he wanted to put into the sentence.
Yes. And those were the things parents were noticing, and they're like, what is going on? And it's just bizarre that the Sold a Story, it's such a good title to that podcast, because so many people they were sold a story. Look, we have this great way of teaching reading. It's fun. It's exciting. Kids love it. And then we came home, they brought it home in COVID, and we're like, well, wait, you're not reading. Now, Oklahoma has more problems on top of that. So that's kind of the national narrative of why the nation is struggling with reading. Oklahoma did their own, had their own hand on things. And this is stuff that you and Jenny really lived. Well, Michael, were you around during Sorry, I haven't
He
been
wasn't
following
around during the
podcasts.
Common Core years. We met after COVID.
Okay. But I reached out to Jenny because, Jonathan Small had a conversation or an article that he really pointed out in 2015, we were doing something good. And so I wanted to understand his point better. And that's where I started really diving into this. And so, and in 2015, it's interesting. Oklahoma had a NAEP average score that was 1 point higher than the national average. And so in 2015, we thought we were doing good. And then there's explanations about why that might be. I have a feeling that it had to do with once Common Core was repealed, Oklahoma returned to the past standards, and those standards were pretty good. And so for those years, the teachers were teaching with those standards that had good instruction, and they were coming off a win of repealing Common Core. So I think that motivation and that guidance helped for those scores. But then right afterwards, the OAS were approved. And so to talk about the issue larger for those that might not have been in Oklahoma like I was at the time, so to understand where we are in education, we repealed Common Core for rigorous local control. That was the goal. Instead of having the federal mandated standards that Oklahoma was saying, no, we're going to set the standards for our kids. We're going to set those expectations. We're going to set high expectations and give our kids a great education. And I think that was the motivation between HB 3399. But it isn't what happens. So in 2010, Common Core was adopted, and Mary Fallin was governor. And this aligned us with the federal standards incorporating balanced literacy hybrids and delaying the SOR focus, because Common Core kind of went to undo some of those things that were established by the Reading First initiative. In 2014, the House Bill 3399 repealed Common Core and promised rigorous locally controlled standards to empower communities.
Blah, 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 blah.
Well, local control is actually in Oklahoma, our repeated cry that, no, we want local control. For education, that's kind of been our Achilles heel, because it's put our schools and our school districts into silos where we aren't really looking at what's being done better in other places. It's like it's more of a protection, don't look here, nothing to see here, move along type thing. And so it's a paradox. I'm kind of like, man, what conservative values, and it kind of shot us in the foot here. But I mean, just like everything else, there's other variables there. Anyways, so from 2015 to 2016, there is a OAS standards committee, and there were 18 people on it, and only 4 of those 18 were specialized in early literacy. And so, or early grades in general, not just literacy, but for the ELA, there were only 4 for early literacy, and the rest were secondary focused. And in secondary, you do make sure that you focus on projects, or not really focus, but you include projects. And during this time, there's a big push for outcomes-based learning. And so systematic instruction was not really embraced at this time. And it's really what we need at those early grade levels. We don't need them to stumble around in the dark and find the answer. We need to teach them this is why this is the answer type thing. Not how to think or what to think, but how to think. Right. But you still have to explicitly teach that to be able to understand those skills. Anyways, so the Oklahoma Standards Committee, there were 5 drafts where they were sent back and asked to improve the standards. And Jenny, do you want to talk about this? You lived this.
Yeah, no, I mean, all I would do would be to say this. We, at the time, ROPE, got 3 experts, Dr. Gray, I'm going to forget who they are, But we got Stotsky. I don't know how I forgot Stotsky. There are pictures of her and I all over the internet. So Stotsky and Gray and one other guy that was the math person. And these were all people who had criticized the Common Core and been thrown off the original committee. And we actually got them to look at the standards and review the standards. And they didn't say, flush them all, they suck. I mean, that's not what they said. They said, here's a problem with this. Here's a problem with this. They were very specific. Well, Joy, after telling us that she would, support us getting out of the Common Core, and she didn't want to do anything like that to get us to vote for her, she promptly turned tail. And then it just became everybody on the internet dogpiling on Rope, all of the liberal teachers who were involved with, because it's the liberal teachers who get involved in these fights, because the liberal teachers have gone to the liberal colleges. They've been indoctrinated into the liberal education. And there is, I mean, for those of you who are watching, who are like, well, it's not red and blue. Policy wise, it's not red and blue, but I can definitely tell you that in terms of education, it's blue. I mean, the educators are blue for the most part. And they use the things that they want to continue to use the tools to teach kids to feel better about themselves and worry less about how well they're doing being educated. And it's ridiculous. It's not helpful. I mean, I've studied it for years. It's pretty much what I just said. And I think you'd agree, wouldn't you, Becky?
Absolutely. The OEA president spoke at the conference in the last panel. And it was all, don't forget the good things. There's good things happening in our schools. And, the same, move along now, nothing to see here.
Exactly.
And it is. But luckily, I was really excited that there were people there that wanted to have conversations, that wanted to understand, what do we need to do? And I was happy that Kyle Hilbert was one of those. He stood on that last panel with the president of OEA, I'm sorry, I don't know her name, and Joy Hoffmeister. They were all up on that panel, and he called him out on a couple of spots that I was happy to see. And so I'm eternally optimistic that if we can have conversations, that we can figure out how to turn this around for our kiddos. And I might be wrong on that.
So long as those conversations aren't just centering around, liberal education policy, which they have been for years, which is, the public was actually starting to get that, which is why they elected Ryan Walters, who, of course, then, thumbed his nose at us and ran off. So, I mean, people were getting the idea that we've been ruled by this, liberal education policy that isn't doing anything except affirming kids' feelings. Oh, you feel like you can read. Good job. Yay. Well, that's not going to help a kid read.
No,
sorry.
No. And I'm big. Get DEI and SEL out of our schools and let's focus on instruction and academics. Absolutely. And John Boyce says the story is told from teachers who are normal or alarming and scary when it comes. Absolutely. It is. John Boy, that is absolutely true. It is alarming and scary because when we aren't teaching actual teaching and we're talking, about how to make instruction fun and easy on the teachers, then we're allowing a lot of stuff in there that's beyond the scope of instruction and academics, which the standards that were produced and put out in 2016, they do that. They're very empty and allow for a lot of other things to be happening than what we need to be happening in our classrooms. And so I'm huge about us needing to rewrite these standards. I'm glad that you guys did what you did. Absolutely. We needed in 2016, we needed to be following Mississippi and Louisiana. They'd already written their literacy laws at this point. And so the standards committee had blueprints available for them. And
But they never
instead,
used them.
but if you look at the people that were on the standards committee, you know, their research that they produce themselves and the grants that they've written, it shows that they were balanced literacy. They were these teachers going to these big arenas full of other teachers throughout the nation, learning how to do units of study and guided reading, and they were having fun and making reading easy and missing the point. And it's it's those sentiments missing the point big time. But it's that background that has been our leaders making the choices in the OSDE. And so while there was everything that's been happening under Joy and Ryan that we see in the newspapers and on social media, these experts have been choosing poor curriculum and outdated materials or practices because this is how they were trained. And in their heart, balanced literacy instills a love of reading, that reading first, I think, kind of betrayed them. It was supposed to be No Child Left Behind. This is the solution. Everybody's going to be able to read. And it was structured and scripted and no fun. And then you come out with these fun rock star style approaches to teaching reading. And what would an elementary teacher rather do in her day? And so, I mean, we'll get to it in a little bit, but there's curriculum now and ways, tools and things that make doing it right, doing the small things right, a whole lot easier. And so we'll get to that in a second too. But closing here, in 2016, there were big calls to rewrite these standards, huge calls. The experts were saying all sorts of, these cannot, and they weren't mean, but they were saying these Stotsky herself said these cannot lead to strong academic outcomes. And that should have been period, throw it away, come back, give us something new. And instead, Joy answered by their choosing stability to unite or unify educators. They're choosing to build comprehensive literacy to unite their educators. And to me, that says, we're going to do this kind of curriculum program where anything works and just not hurt anyone's feelings and get everybody on board. Well, it left our kids, it really hurt our kiddos. So the OAS legacy, vague standards, enabled queuing in classrooms for a decade. And we wasted $150 to $250 million in the last decade on ineffective programs.
But who cares? It's not their money. They steal it from us. What do they care? What do they care?
Exactly. And hey, Jenny, how do I switch over to the charts?
Well, here's what I might have to do. I think I might have to do this.
Thanks, Michael.
So, but hold on just a second. Hey, Michael, how do you make this bigger? Michael. Oop, that didn't work. You did the same thing I did. I don't know. Can you explain? I mean, we can kind of see just explain it and hopefully we'll be okay.
So we're talking about all these scores and figures. And so I wanted to make some of it make sense. So all the things I'm really talking about, I'm basing off of the.
Hold on, I messed it up.
Here.
Hold on. I've completely messed it up. Hang on. Dang it. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. You're the best. Go ahead.
And so you can look at 8th grade proficiency rates and college level or graduation level. All of mine, just for sake of clarity, are going to look at 4th grade reading proficiency from the NAEP. And so when we understand this here, let's just understand the different cutoffs. So in 2024, 41% of our students nationally scored below basic. And then 29% were at basic, 22% are proficient, and advanced are 9%. So real quick,
That's terrible.
It is. Let me see. I had one. Okay. So what does that mean exactly? The NAEP is scored on a 0 to 500 scale. Advanced is anything above 268. And so when you think of it, advanced is 268 out of 500. We're not setting the mark very high. That is definitely not an 80 percentile comprehension or competency rate. And then if we go further, the metric that everybody tends to use is proficient. So proficient, when you hear that, they score 238 or higher out of 500. Yeah, we're not even at 50%. And then basic is 208 and below basic is 170. And so here on this first chart, we can see, let's see, Mississippi is blue. The national average is the dotted line. Tennessee is green. Alabama's purple. Sorry, black was not a good background, was it? And so here's our surge states. And so the big thing that they're noticing are these jumps. And you see there, before COVID, there was a spike, and then we dropped because of COVID, and then we've been growing again. So there is the surge states compared with the national average. And then here's just looking at proficiency. And this is percentages. So the percentage of students, the other was the average test score. And then this is the percentage of students that are proficient. And so you can see where Louisiana had that great big spike. And what are the other noticeable ones? But Louisiana's big jump there is the one that I'm always happy to see. Cade Brumley's been doing a lot of good things out of Louisiana. Now, here's Oklahoma and Mississippi. And this is based off of their scaled scores.
Are we the light blue?
Yeah, it looks like it.
We're the light blue.
Oh, good gosh.
And so our scaled score is low 2 teens. So 212, I think.
Yeah.
Now, here is Oklahoma and Mississippi's spending comparison. So Mississippi's been, making the biggest leaps and bounds, and they've been spending in the green, and then the red is Oklahoma spending. So in 2022...
You mean $4 billion isn't helping literacy?
Not yet. And I have the budget too that we can look at in a little bit. Okay. Can we switch back to the slide deck?
Yes, absolutely.
So I just wanted to give you
actually do that.
Those just as we're talking about all of these stats, I wanted to give you those charts there to help it make sense. So what I've arrived at after looking at all of this data and my own observations and reading on other people, what they've been saying, this is what I'm noticing. And it's insider failures are what's locking in queuing instruction in our classrooms, as well as all the fiscal waste. And so we go back to the OAS Literacy Committee, and 11 out of 18 of them are still in education, either at the OSDE or in colleges or in extension groups. And so it's kind of embedded this flawed literacy conception to just be everywhere in our system. And it's guided the state for the last year or decade. And because of that decade, you look at their credentials, they do look like experts, and they are. They're experts at instilling balance of literacy instead of the effective means that work. And you can look at Mellner's dissertation in 2015, and she was one of the members on the OAS committee, middle grades. And so her specialty, I think, was working with middle school kids, which, that's near and dear to my heart. They are special, and getting
Yes,
that
they
group
are.
to want to read. Yes, exactly.
Getting
And
that
so
group to do anything.
I taught middle school for 5 years. I love them. They're my people, but they are a handful.
They are. My
And
goodness. I love them, though. If I were to go back to teaching, I'd go back to middle school. I'd do 7th grade again in a heartbeat. Loved it.
absolutely.
Loved those kids.
And Milner's dissertation, it seems it's a concept that's used a lot for secondary grades, and it's choice-based instruction, letting teachers kind of see where students are and then give them what they need. And it's an entire theory, but it's also one of those things that's been disproven, that direct explicit instruction is clearly more effective than responsive methods. And so that kind of mindset on classrooms is deeply embedded in our standards, and it's been proven to be inaccurate. And Milner, I'm not sure, all of a sudden, since Fields has been put in as the head of the OSDE, I'm not finding where Milner's there anymore. But she was the deputy state superintendent. And so a lot of these theories, from what I'm seeing in the different literature that I pulled from OSDE, you can really see that choice-based, responsive-based instruction options through a lot of the literature. The current literature director at the OSDE, during this time, whenever she was on the OAS, she was at Putnam City. And Putnam City, right in 2016, they jumped full board onto reading recovery and spent $80,000 that year for reading recovery. And then reading recovery was placed as a $5 million yearly allocation out of the Reading Sufficiency Act. So every year, reading recovery got that much more to be put in our districts in Oklahoma. And it was the main program of choice for over 40 of our districts during this decade, or 40%, sorry, not 40 total, but 40% of our districts. And so it's had a very long-term impact on Oklahoma, and that's the program that has a 0.1 effect size.
That's
and
awful.
So practically no effect.
And
we
that was
spent
under Joy, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so overall, and I can dive into that more if people have questions about it. I have my research here about where all the money went. But overall, I can find where we put 150 to 200 million into these flawed programs. And so training our teachers with these flawed programs, we spend a lot of money to train our teachers how to teach our kids to be struggling readers. And there's evidence to show that it's still happening in our teacher colleges. And I'll talk about that here in a second too, but only 3 of our teacher colleges are teaching explicit science of reading. And then this other thing's happening, and this is the thing that really has me just irritated, is that the American Rescue Plan, after COVID, we dedicated $13 million to retrain our teachers because all of a sudden we're noticing, hey, we're not doing this right. So they pick the best program, and it's letters, and it's LETRS, and it's 160 hours and 2 years of intense brain study. This program is great for teaching people like me how to fix all of this stuff. It's not the program that you have an elementary teacher that needs to teach these 20 kids right now how to read. The program doesn't give you anything that you can actually use in the classroom until you're 2 months into it. And then even then you have to understand stuff at a high level to be able to make it effective. But what it did was it trained our teachers in this terminology. And so now we're using the terms, we're saying the things to validate the same materials that we've been using in our classrooms and validate doing the exact same stuff.
Oh, that's so
and saying,
frustrating.
it is. And so that's where I landed, that I was like, oh my goodness, this is what's happening and this is frustrating. And then Fox News keeps saying it's a red surge. And I'm like, no, it's not. And so
I did want to throw this in really fast. It also doesn't help when you have parents that won't help their own kids. I mean, Absolutely. It's just true. I mean, any kid whose parents are willing to put in the effort are ahead of the kids whose parents won't.
And it's that point right there that makes the third grade retention punitive, because it's not really the kid's fault that they can't read at that point. And I'm not putting it all on the parents either. There's lots of factors. But at the end of the day,
but again, as we've talked about on this program a million bazillion times, they're your children. You birthed them or adopted them or whatever it is, but they're your children and they become your jobs. That is your job. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why I used to hate teaching sometimes, and it was mainly surrounded about the parents. Well, why aren't you doing this? Okay, well, maybe I could say the same thing to you. How often have you read with your child? Well, I do it, but that's what you're here for. It's,
Exactly. And like I said, there's so many variables, because there's parents that are like that. And then there's the parents that are just like, I'll do anything to help them. I just don't know what to do. And so it's getting the right materials and the right knowledge and all the things together. But we've been spending the last decade doing all the wrong things. And so this is such a mountain to climb. And so here's a list here of what the surge states are doing right and what we're doing wrong, and causing just this embedded inertia for any sort of improvement, because we've been stagnant on growth for years now. So,
well, that's a great slide, Becky. Dang.
And so walking through it,
for audits, I love that.
And that could do so much right there if we just made sure that the approved curriculum is actually aligned
being used.
And not, I don't know how they're chosen. And I want to ask Kendra more of this, because I know, because Kendra Wesson was on the textbook committee. And I know from different times that I've heard her speak that she educated herself and worked really hard to understand what needed to be in those textbooks. And I know she's watched the podcast too, Sold a Story. So I know they had people that wanted to do good things and do right things. And so I'm still trying to understand, because once you look at this stuff this way, you're like, oh, well, that's clear. That's easy. Let's just do the right things right. And so hopefully we can do that.
Wow. That's a great slide. I mean, it's very specific, Becky. I don't know how people can get that. I did want to put this in. Hold on one second. There were a couple of good ones. Oh, this is a good one. Gracie says people don't seem to understand their role anymore. They'd rather the state do the work while they do all the extracurricular fun stuff. And I do think that's probably, and Sarah says that she thinks that Oklahoma is generationally deficient in literacy.
I would agree with that. It's sad. And we got to jump in and make these changes here. And we can do something about that. But that's a good point.
Did they ever talk about this, at the thing you went to on Wednesday? Did they talk about this? This is what Oklahoma is doing wrong. XYZ. Here, these things.
Oh, some people talked about needing more accountability. They kind of acted like the systematic phonics and retention is, they've known that for years, that that's the way to go. And so, like, the literacy panel itself, they were saying all the things, but at the same time, you know, it's said by the people that had, you know, really ran and pushed the balanced literacy charge, and now it feels like they've just appropriated the terms for science of reading and are fitting it to where they think that it should be.
Yeah, but that happens so often. You use the lingo, but you don't use the stuff. And Earl's daughter says, is there any chance this is intentional? I mean, how many cabinets do I have to build that don't work or injure people before I'm held accountable?
I've asked myself a lot that very question, because when you think about it, we have the amount of technology that we have. We are throwing gobs of funds, not only, you know, money itself, but human capacity into this problem as well. The World Bank just published an article telling how to effectively teach reading in all of the countries in the world. And so the World Bank is now appropriating science of reading and putting out literature. And like, for me, that's virtue signaling, and it's pointing to the fact that there's about to be a whole bunch more funds building programs for literacy and that kind of stuff. And our academics are probably lower than it's been in, you know, since the Department of Education was even established. And so, and think of all of that money that's been put into it, and we've just been kind of steadily lowering the bar. And so I don't know. I hope it's not intentional.
I think it's 100% intentional, Rebecca. Or Becky. I think it's 100% intentional. You can only, you know, if a government wants to grow and you want to control people and you want to have, you know, you want to eliminate, you know, a middle class of independent sovereign people, this is how you do it. You do it through
make them stupid,
being completely illiterate, you know, within a couple generations, to where they can't even function, have proper problem solving skills, critical thinking skills. They're no more producing anymore. Now they're just complete dependence on government programs. I think it's 100% intentional.
Yeah, when you say it like that, it's a complete extension of LBJ's policies, isn't it?
Yeah.
I always go back to LBJ.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's the one who started all of it. I mean, he's the one who started everything right on the downhill, circling the drain trajectory.
And Michael,
I don't know. I guess FDR started it before that. Sorry, he had 12 whole years to get that going. LBJ just doubled down under the Republican flag.
And then we can't forget that Wilson had his hand in a lot of it too.
Yeah. Well, I still blame. I mean, the number one thing that I just hated about Reagan was, as soon as he got in office, Carter put in Department of Education. He could have abolished that, then got rid of it, and then we may have, you know, gone a little different way. But I don't know. I just don't think it's that hard to teach kids to read. If you were in a school district as an administrator or the school board, because I guess you earlier you said, you know, local control really seems to be part of the issue with our performance here. So I would say, you know, who do we actually blame in this deal? Like, we can't really blame the legislators as much as maybe just the local school districts. Is it on them to literally put, you know, this type of learning, you know, into process, or they just or is just the allocation of their money incorrect? altogether? I mean, what?
Well, local leadership plays a huge role in it. Absolutely. And that's it, you hit the nail on the head there, Michael, because that's why there are silos of districts in Oklahoma that are doing phenomenal. I can't remember his name, but there was a superintendent that opened the panel, opened the whole thing on that first panel, that his school has been an A school. He came in, I think, like 13, 14 years ago, and they got a D. And he's like, okay, here's a D. This is what a D school is. We're going to own this. We are not doing good. We're doing D work. Do we want to do D work or do we want to do A work? And they, as a community, were like, no, we want to do A work. And they rose up, and they have been, and they've been thriving. And, if anyone went to that panel or can find it, Vincent, his last name is Vincent. He's been doing great. And then on that panel, that exact same panel, there was another superintendent, and her school's been a D school for the last 13, 14 years. And, she talked about the wins, looking at the wins and seeing where, focusing on what we're doing well. And so
if you're a D school, that would take a microscope. So let's focus on how to get better and not on the wins.
Well, and so
bring them in, determine what the wins are there at a D school. So dope.
Well, but instructional leadership at each school and at each district and in each teacher team is so crucial. That kind of, if you have a leader that's embracing instruction and doing the small things right, you're going to have a good school. But whenever we hide behind local control, but then follow any initiative that's set by the state.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. We're in a perpetual cycle of failure. And it comes to these three factors. There's more. There's a wider governance issue for Oklahoma education, but that's going to take a lot of additional work. This is what we can do right now to fix literacy. So that 2016 or 2015 standards committee, 11 of them are in very prominent decision-making positions in the OSDE and in, regional colleges and different organizations that have to do with education. And so we have to understand those limitations and have that conversation that we need experts that are actual experts for understanding what works, and not enabling this open interpretation of the standards that continues to allow a hybrid dominance in our curriculum and our approved tools and resources, and then the literature and the guidance that we're getting. We have to understand that that's what's happening. And it's enabling this large amount of wasteful spending. We've spent a whole bunch on Heinemann PD. Mountis and Pinnell libraries are found in many schools throughout the state. And Read and Recovery, up until the Strong Readers Act, was still getting $4.5 million a year. And so what we can do really... Well, and then look at the training, our weak training. So the National Council on Teacher Quality did a big study on all of the public universities in America in 2003, or not 2003, 2023. I'm sorry. And Oklahoma did not fare well on this at all. They found that only 38% of our nation's colleges are teaching science of reading research. And otherwise, they are mostly teaching balanced literacy, hybrid models, whole word models. And then in Oklahoma specifically, we only have 3 schools that got a B: OU, Langston, and Cameron. OCU got an F. OPSU got an OSU's
Not
undergraduate
just a D,
program
not
has
just a C, but an F.
because they are teaching, and it took me becoming a professor at a regional university to understand they literally are teaching. I had one class that I was given a shell that was all off of the Reading Recovery's textbook. It was the official Reading Recovery teacher manual textbook. And then the other one was the Units of Study, Lucy Calkins' textbook. And so I was hired specifically. They said, do you understand the science of reading? And I said, yes. And they're like, do you understand the Strong Readers Act? And I said, yes. And they're like, okay, you're hired. And then the director sat there and told me, just take the shell as it was. This is what I did when I started. Just take the shell and teach it the exact way it was taught.
Good.
And then next year you can update it. So I had built beautiful courses and then scrapped them to follow the instruction of my director. And 2 weeks in, because the first 2 weeks are these canned Canvas modules that come from the learning management system. And it's about 2 weeks giving the broad brushes of science of reading before it dove in depth into those textbooks. And there's been so much turnover at OPSU, they didn't understand that. And then the director came from Texas and knew nothing about Oklahoma law or Oklahoma education. And so, like, I stepped in it big time because I was like, hey, what do you want me to do? Because everything is now illegal. And they're like, what? And so from that point on, it was, oh, you're the bad guy because you're pointing out how I did bad. And so move along. Nothing to see here. All over again.
Yeah. That's Oklahoma. That's why we're so good. That's why we do so well, is because instead of being accountable, we just go, oh, well, you're the problem. Take off.
Absolutely.
And I also think that's a great slide too. If somebody can't read that and figure out what the problems are, yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be mean, but you're probably dumb or something.
Well, and are you able to pull up the budget file that I sent?
Okay, let me pull it up.
Maybe
it probably, I'll have to share my screen because I don't think it's going to pull up, but let me see if I can do that. Hold on.
Works. And we can just go through those data points. So at the last OSDE meeting, they approved a $4 billion budget from the state, and then federal grants and different things will add an additional 1.8 billion.
Hold on.
And so
I got to make it bigger if I can.
Yeah. You can click the magnifying glass down there at the bottom. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Then I made it a little too big. Okay. Can we see it that way?
Yeah.
Okay. It's what we've got. We're going with what we've got.
That works. If I lean in,
I see.
I don't show your numbers.
So early intervention, Sooner Start was 16 million. Alternative Ed was 14 million. Reading Sufficiency Act was 17,500 million.
And that's the fund that number 3 was what that 4.5 million that automatically went to Read and Recovery every year. It came out of this fund. I don't know. We don't know where this money is going to. What programs is this fund? I would love to be able to ask somebody, what is the Reading Sufficiency funds going to now that queuing is banned?
Oh, this is bad. We're spending $1 million on Imagine Math and Imagine Reading.
Now, that was what Lindell Fields added right at the end of the last meeting.
Oh, my goodness. The 2 biggest programs that just don't work. Imagine Math. It's terrible. And look it up.
2 million. Look at number 13. 2 million to the Imagine
the
Library.
Dolly Parton Imagination Library. We could be spending that on something better. That's $4 million that should not be. So Lindell Fields, Lindell, whatever you call him, comes in and adds this crap.
Well, but I'm looking at, yes, I'm not a fan of what is it? I mean, it's the Imagine suite, the Imagine Learning suite, Edgenuity. Sorry. As a teacher, I did not enjoy having to teach anything from that suite, but I'm looking at, so Mr. Field's background is career tech. And so a lot of the time when you're working with career tech and alternative education students, you're looking at credit recovery. And even though you can load up any Edgenuity class and find all the answers online, so I'm not a fan of this choice at all. I'm wondering if he didn't look behind the curtain of our actual ability to turn this around and our teacher training and our human capacity of being able to one-on-one do this, and decide that the best way to get effective literacy instruction in the classroom and numeracy, math is having a similar problem since Common Core math destroyed a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Common Core
that
math
the best
was
way to do that
the worst.
Is to give systematic step-by-step instruction. At this level, Imagine Reading and Imagine Math, it's painful to teach, but it is step-by-step. It's everything why the Reading First initiative failed, but it's not balanced literacy. And it's a way that we're able to get these kiddos effective instruction. Well, effective instruction's a stretch. Systematic phonics-based instruction. And so, like, I'm not happy seeing these at all, but I'm looking more at the fact that that's how bad our situation is that these are our best options. Yeah, it does, Mr. Brightside. So, and if you keep scrolling down, there's more of a, yeah, Earl's daughter. It is. There's more of an itemized list that tells you a little bit more of what things are going to.
Yeah, well, we've got to do something about this. Comprehensive state literacy development, $11 million.
That worries me. Joy said that we are building comprehensive literacy in Oklahoma. I'm seeing the terms comprehensive literacy being the new key terms for balanced literacy. And so that's their new workaround on systematic phonics instruction that follows all of the bits of the reading rope. Instead of that, we're building comprehensive literacy. I'm worried whenever I see those words now.
Well, we still have 21st century garbage on here, not quite $1 million. I mean, let's see, what else? What is this Project Respect West Aware? What is all of that?
No idea.
Student support, though. All right, well, let's start to wind up here because this is really good. I mean, you've really given us some great stuff there. I mean, super interesting stuff.
Well, here's my call to action. And I think that, I mean, there's a broader thing that we have to do for our education system, that we need a complete governance overhaul. But there's not much we can do right now on that. These are things we can do right now. And so, one, we got to get good curriculum into our classrooms. So the English language arts curriculum is up for reevaluation and readoption. So we need to talk to that standards committee or that textbook committee and say, hey, instead of this list, and they have 11 approved and then 22 almost approved curriculums listed there. And Mississippi has 6. And from the approved curriculums that I've looked at and dived into, and that's kind of what I'm currently working on as a complete curriculum jumping in with both feet, understanding it all, and looking at the history to see which ones were developed out of balanced literacy and which ones that have been consistently phonics based through the time. We only have about 5 that are solid choices on that curriculum list. And so we need that curriculum committee to really get on top of that and only let good choices be on that list. And then instruction. So right now, parents, school boards, look at what's coming home, look at your spelling list. In my opinion, having a spelling inventory, that could be the one way that we could really tell just at a glance if a school is aligned with the science of reading or not. The OSDE, it'd probably take maybe $500 to build a good AI bot that every school could just send in their spelling list for first grade, and you'd be able to know right away who's compliant and who isn't. You can also look at the worksheets coming home. If there's a lot of worksheets that at the bottom has dates from the mid-teens, they're probably using balanced literacy resources that teacher has loved and put in their classroom for the last 10 years, and it's probably not effective. And so we need to, that strict accountability thing that pops up everywhere, we really need to do that and see what's coming home, what the teachers are using, and making sure that we're teaching to the research and not otherwise. And then our teacher training, we need to do a complete overhaul on our teacher prep programs. This is the fact that we only have 3 of our universities out of the 23 that scored Bs, not even As. We don't have any As. We have 3 Bs, a couple of Cs, and all the Fs. All the rest are mostly Fs with a couple of Ds. It's really sad that the universities have been continued to allow embracing balanced literacy and these big 3 programs that are highly scrutinized now, and our universities are really relying on them. And then on top of that, we're then turning around and trying to retrain all of our teachers with this letters program, which is again 160 plus hours. Let's see, Alabama and Tennessee both have programs that are about 50 hours, and then Mississippi and Louisiana's are a little longer. But there are programs that are a third of what we're putting our teachers to, and they're actually using the information that they're learning and not hating it, for one, cheating to get through it on another. There's lots on X. If you search teachers cheating on letters, you'll find so many posts of teachers saying, yeah, I had no idea what was going through that training. I cheated my way through that. And so we're spending all that money to put out poor teachers when it really wouldn't be that hard to hold them accountable and say, no, we're really going to do a good job at this. And so those are my 3 big fixes right now to be able to get Oklahoma kiddos to reading. And I'm diving into this on the research level as well. I really think that poor reading instruction is teaching our kids this concept of learned helplessness. And so the long and short of it is we're looking at effective instruction teaches kids the entire toolbox effective literacy instruction gives kiddos the entire toolbox to be able to figure out and recognize almost any word that they come across, as opposed to the ineffective style of teaching where we're teaching them 3 questions. What's it look like? What's it sound like? Does it make sense? If they can't answer those 3 questions, what do? They go ask for help. And so we're teaching our kids to not be critical thinkers, but to just roll over. Oh, I don't know. You tell me. And this is perpetuating as they're getting older. they're experiencing one frustration. They're not learning how to read, and so they're hindered by, if I can't answer question 1, 2, or 3, then there's no hope for me. And then they experience that over and over and over, and the repeated failure,
learned helplessness.
As opposed to critical thinking skills flourishing with effective literacy instruction. So we can brush all this off saying, we're not teaching our kids how to read, and maybe they'll figure it out someday. No, it's doing a lot more to their psyche rather than just simply literacy or not. And so this is my larger theory that I've been working on. And I have a research proposal that I would love anyone that wants to figure out literacy with me, reach out, because I have a proposal to be able to take the available literacy funds, because we have gobs of money, obviously, and we're sending it to corporations that are, I tend to be inclined to what Michael said, are intentionally teaching our kids to fail. Or we could put those funds into somewhere useful. And I know there's lots of good teachers in Oklahoma, and there's lots of people that are building their own resources all the time. Why can't we figure out how to have them on the approved list and get tools made by Oklahomans for Oklahoma kiddos in our Oklahoma classrooms and get our kiddos to reading? And so that research proposal, at the first, I've built a program that is based on the brain science, and it's pretty much a card game, and it's called Phonics Switch, but it's based on brain mapping, the brain science, and building orthographic mapping, and repeatedly making those neural pathways in the brain do what it's supposed to do in a broken down way, so that kids build word recognition. And they do it in a systematic way. I have 22 decks that I've built so far.
Wow.
And I know there's lots of Oklahoma teachers out there with fantastic resources. And so this research proposal that I have, it establishes a way to say, okay, is this resource effective in the classroom? I have a friend right now who, her son's in 3rd grade, and he started the cards at the first year. At the first year, he was in the first percentile, and they just did their benchmark testing before fall break, and he's now in the 15th percentile. So there's little data points that I have like that. That's the biggest one, because his mama's a go-getter, and she's using the cards every night, and he's doing them, and he's really showing growth. Some of the kiddos, because I do personal tutoring here, they're showing, I had an 8-point jump since the first of the year, and then a 5-point jump. And so I'm excited with the growth that I'm seeing. But for any program like this to be recognized as effective, you've got to go through a strict quantitative analysis. And I have the research proposal ready to do that, but it would also establish a way for us to get those funds to other Oklahoma educators. They're like, hey, I want to help with this, but the system is so entrenched and stacked against you. If you are an experienced educator and not in one of those silo districts that are doing the right things right, then you are pushed out. You're attacked.
Yeah, for sure.
There's so many ways we could be doing things today to turn this around. We just need the people in charge to want to do that. And I'm hopeful for the new administration. I reached out a lot to the old administration, and never even got acknowledged. And so I'm really
he was a
hoping
Republican, and how could that be?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people say that he did exactly what he said he did, and he did. He said he did exactly what he said he was going to do. Sorry. And he did. I just was under the assumption that he would do the bare minimum of the job, because it is state superintendent of instruction. And so he would still be focused on instruction, and he wasn't. But I don't mean to step on people's toes by that. I was just really disappointed by the last administration. because I just keep finding new things out here that I'm like, this should not be allowed to happen.
Yeah.
And it was. And
Yeah.
so I'm hopeful with the new administration and the different people that are in policy. I mean, we have JJ and we have Jim, and I know they're in the legislature, but they listen. And so the more people that we have that listen, I think that we have a lot of people that want to fix this problem if they could just be given the right information. And so hopefully.
Well, Earl's daughter says, thanks, that she'll get the information out. And that is something that we've got to do. Is this the end of the slide? Oh, it is. Okay. All right.
Yep.
Well, that we can buy that from you, correct, Becky, on your
Absolutely
Diamond P or website or whatever it is. Tell us how to do that.
Yeah, my website is diamondpranchlllc.com, and I have a Facebook page, and I sell them. I have a Foundations of Reading course that if you're wanting to understand how to do this, well, it's not a course, it's just a thank you.
Is that right? diamondpranchlllc.com.
That's it.
Okay.
Because
good, I did it.
My husband and I share our website, and so I have an academic consulting page that's all academics, and then he is a farrier as well, and so he has his farrier page, but that'll take you to the landing, and then you just pick education, unless you're needing a horse shod, and then you can click the other one too.
All right, I'm going to throw up some, I'm not going to throw up. I am going to put a few comments that I've starred to kind of wait for you to get through the program because I didn't want to take over time. So Sarah says, those are supposed to help students who need just extra practice. Volunteers after school can't remedy poor primary instruction or lack of literacy education. And then then Earl's daughter says, from my experience, IEPs and special ed was used as an excuse to lower the standards even more. And I'm sure it hasn't improved in 7 years. The old saying rings true here. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Make Dick and Jane great again. That's pretty good. Sarah says education is the biggest slice of the state budget pie every year. And then of course the liberal educators want more, right? Every year they want more money. And you say, and so what do you want the money for? And they can't tell you. And then you say, and how much money do you want? And they say, we'll tell you when we get there. Right. This is a sure way to improve reading scores nationwide. Yankees won't take kindly to Southerners' children's reading better than theirs.
And that's such a good point. Massachusetts is huge in the Southern Surge narrative right now because they just passed 155-0 for mandated phonics instruction. That's huge in Massachusetts because Columbia's there. Lucy Calkins University, that is, and so it's going to be a fight. Everyone on X is just waiting to see how Massachusetts handles it because there's districts that they live and breathe Lucy Calkins, and they're going to fight that. It's going to be a bloodbath.
OSDE and Medicaid have been collaborating with a software company to grow school-based health services so districts pay more for increased federal funds for growing government progressive programs and not addressing basic literacy. I do think that's a problem. I've seen that become a problem. I know that it's happening. I mean, it's just true. I just don't know how you make them quit spending that money.
And Deborah Campbell has been diving into that a lot.
Yeah, for a long time, actually. She's been one of the voices that have. Sarah says, Common Core math is so bad. Oy. It's so bad, and it persists across Oklahoma. Parents and grandparents can't even help with K-5 homework anymore. If we don't get Common Core math out of the schools, it won't get better. Just not going to. Common Core math sucks. It sucks. It's not going to get any better. Oh, Dr. Becky, how much money could you have saved me in the last 7 years? I can't tell you how much money I've spent trying to find a curriculum for my son. Oh, no.
It's so hard.
Yeah. Well, it was, as a homeschool parent, curriculum is, that's one thing you pay a lot of attention to. And man, I knew math curriculum inside and out when I was homeschooling because I detested Common Core based math. And even in homeschool, we had so many homeschool math curricula that had included Common Core. It's just terrible. I mean, basically everything that happened with Common Core that we all said was going to happen with Common Core happened with Common Core. Rope is
Well,
right.
in reading your blogs, because I went back through the Rope report, I don't know, on my website, if somebody visits, I get dings. So you might have gotten dinged a lot, though, because I was going through so many. No,
Yeah.
You should probably turn that off. I should turn that off. But I also like to know, except whenever it's Russia or China, I get dings. Somebody's visiting your website from China. I'm like,
oh, that's so funny. Yeah, no, I don't have that because it's a blog. I don't, you could probably turn it on because it was a Google based blog before we moved to a WordPress site like we have now. But yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to know anything about education curricula from the teens, the mid-teens, all you got to do, early teens and mid-teens, all you need to do is go to, what is it? It's Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment Blogspot is what it is. So yeah. Well, Becky,
and I mean, you and Stotsby, y'all had a crystal ball. Everything that you said was going to happen. I mean, that's why we're in that situation. It's really sad that that standard rewrite, it really shot us in the foot.
Oh, and that standards rewrite ruined me. I quit. I quit for several years and just went home and taught my kids by myself and did the mayor thing here and got out of education policy and everything altogether for like 5 years because teachers in this state, liberal teachers in this state, I mean, we saw it during COVID. I mean, we saw, what has happened. They will fight you and be ugly and rude and mean. And I mean, I've got screenshots from that era that I could put out, and you're just like, how do people act like this that are in education circles? And there's no discussion. There was just you suck in your whole and you blah, blah. It was just that, I mean, we would get on X and do something. It was Twitter back then. We used to get on Twitter and post like school board meetings and stuff like that. They would come in. I don't know what these liberal teachers were doing. They apparently weren't engaged in their classroom at all because they would send stuff out and then they'd all just like Twitter bomb you with, you suck and, you're a racist or whatever it was that they'd call you at the time. I mean, we got called plenty of names, but that people need to understand that these liberal teachers, and the schools are full of them, there are way fewer conservative teachers than there are liberal teachers because the liberal teaching colleges keep pumping these people out. And I'm just going to tell you, they don't care a thing about whether your kids get educated or not because it's a political issue for them. And none of this stuff that's coming through teacher colleges are meant to educate kids because if you're dumb, you're easily led and taken over. So I have said for the past, I don't know, 8 or 10 years, get your kids out of public school. They don't belong in public school. Be a parent. Bring them home, learn how to educate them. At this point, it can't be worse for you to do it at home than you're getting at the public school. I don't care if you have to pay for it twice, do it anyway. I mean, it's just, I learned to hate the Oklahoma education establishment during that time because this was all over standards. We were right. We've been proven right. History has proven me right. And yet, they tried to take me out, and they did because I just couldn't take it anymore. I mean, I just couldn't. They were that much. They bullied us that much that I just went, fine, I'm done then.
And the districts, they're still embracing balanced literacy and the failed practices. They
And
do
Common
that
Core
to
math.
every teacher. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They do what they did to you on the state level. They do that to every teacher that comes in that has the audacity to say, hey, I think there's a better way of doing this. And they just destroy them.
That destroy them. Destroy them. I mean, people need to understand it's not small. I mean, it's not a small thing. These people group together like piranhas and they destroy good teachers and they destroy good researchers and they bury good research. It's just the education community is all based on liberal nonsense. It's all based on liberal nonsense. And until we get something that's really going to turn that around, and I think your program today has been phenomenal. It gives very specific points, Becky. I mean, very specific points. And I think people need to send this podcast to as many legislators as they possibly can. And, we need to find a way to get around the partisan, BS and have people actually do what's going to work for kids.
Absolutely. And we can. We just got to put our egos aside. And that's going to be hard for a lot of the people that are in power right now and have been. But it's not about us as adults being right. It's about doing what our kids need.
It is me.
Of course, Jenny.
I just want to make sure everybody knows that was right.
We already, wasn't this last 2 hours? It was saying, look, Jenny was right. For the last 10 years, Jenny was right.
Julia made up this thing where she would just say rope is right and put it on everything because, but it wasn't even so much as it is. The information is out there. You just proved it to us today. Because you're right too. The information is out there. It's just that these liberal education bullies will bully you until you go away and give up because, it's their way or the highway. And they've been indoctrinated to believe that and they're dumb. So, and they're sheep and they'll just baw and go along, not understanding that it is a specific thing to destroy this country. Miseducating our children. All you have to do is just look at where we are right now. It has come to near the point of destroying this country. And it's all, what the Marxists wanted us to do. So then this is right. They don't want truly educated kids.
Absolutely. And so when our kiddos are struggling, mom and dad's stressed out, everyone's worried. So if you're in that situation, don't worry if you have funds or not. If you need help, reach out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Becky, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful program today. So appreciate you being on. Love this. You did a great job with this. You've just been a real bright spot to me because I'm like, oh, wow. Somebody who can understands it and B is willing to speak out. So thank you for being that person.
Of course. Thank you for giving me the time to share.
Well, we love you and are happy to do that. So we will talk to you again soon, but thanks for being on today. We really appreciate you. All right. Talk soon. She's amazing. And really, literally, I think if you don't, there's so few Becky Pelhams out there.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking is how good really is Becky to have the heart she has to go up against the system she's going up against, to stay in it.
Oh, she's been
and to keep
fired.
Trying to still keep fighting and find solutions and research. Everything she does. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So those of you who don't know, Dr. Pelham, she's been fired. She's been bullied. She's been run out of schools. This is what they do to people who really want kids to learn. They will find a way to get rid of you. It's pathetic. And for Becky to be able to put together this program, do that paper, come on here and speak out about it, I don't think you guys that are watching understand how big of a deal that is.
Yeah.
I mean, she's one small salmon swimming upstream. And you guys, you got to understand it, because it's a bad deal. All right, Mr. Mann, anything before we get off of here today? Because we're already 2:10.
Sure. I made a meme while you were talking, just struck me. So I made a meme just for you.
Okay. All right. I thought when you throat punch somebody, you did a karate chop. You actually use your fist.
We can do that too. I didn't have enough time to generate the full detail, but I should have put my Braveheart face in here instead of just the regular
Gooper.
Jenny White face.
All right, Gooper. All right, go away. And yes, that's true, Gracie. She is a true warrior, and we just need to have more. Don't laugh at him. That's not helpful. Then he just does it more. Don't laugh at him. Okay. Anything else? Can you think of anything else?
No. It's I just there's so many things you could go off on a trail with all this education, everything, but I mean, I just don't know how it's not just paramount at every single school that you do whatever it takes to get these kids to read. Yeah. Above 20%, 30, 40, 50% proficiencies, those are all failing. Like, you need to be at 90%. And in those early years, you cut out all that extra stuff that doesn't matter. You just figure out how much time you need to spend with these kids to get them to read. I mean, I just don't get it. I don't get how.
Well, the only way you get it is if you understand that it's meant to bring down the United States. It's one of the Marxist planks. Make kids stupid is one of the Marxist planks. And if we've got to understand that it's a fight. I mean, people want to ruin America. It's been the brightest spot in the world, and they really want to get rid of it. And how better to get rid of it than making our kids dumb? And using our tax dollars to do that.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's what they're doing. They're stealing it from us, giving it to these programs that don't work to miseducate our children. And if you want to buy the bull crap narrative, liberal narrative, that's not what we're doing. All you have to do is walk out your door and look at the kids that are coming out of public education. That's all you have to do.
Yeah. Well, now you've got the acceleration of technology, all this video stuff, all these, AI analysis of everything. I mean, they're going to just be technology is going to take the place of so much of that critical thinking aspect. Like, when you sit down and look at something, you should be able to make the decision yourself. And if you can't even read, how are you even going to do that? If you got to go ask, Siri or, ask some AI or something. I mean, it's.
And Ty is so right.
Yeah.
We are living the real life movie of Idiocracy. 150 million %.
Yeah, we're heading down that pretty quickly.
Oh, yes, we are. I mean, all you have to do is watch Idiocracy and you're like, what? It's so bad. I've seen it twice. And the first time I saw it, I thought it was funny. And the second time I cried. I did. I couldn't stop crying through the whole thing, because I was like, once your eyes are open and you see it, you just can't not see it. And it's horrifying.
All right. Who did that? Mike Judge? Did Mike Judge do that?
Yeah.
I mean, he projected Beavis and Butthead out 30 years. That's what the common person's going to be like, is Beavis and Butthead.
Yep.
I hated those guys. I absolutely hated those guys, Jenny.
I don't know that I hated them. I just thought they were so stupid. Now, I did because we watched all of those. What was the Texas guy?
King of the Hill?
Yeah, King of the Hill. Worked in propane accessories. Yeah, I liked that one, but I wasn't a huge fan of, All right, well, we better get off of here because we're 2:15. It's been quite a day, quite a morning. Becky did a phenomenal job like she normally does. Please, everybody, again, once it's downloaded onto it'll be on YouTube. It'll be on Rumble. Share. Send it to your, oh, there's Julia C. I was like, where is Julia C. in all of this? I can't believe she's not just going, yeah, during Common Core, we, they want to destroy godliness. I do agree with that too. They want to mimic goodness to ensnare people. They call poison food, propaganda, education, redistribution of wealth, charity, and so on. And that's it. I mean, it's 100%. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. Don't forget, we did move the conference to February 26th through the 28th. Please make sure you add that to your calendar. You'll see more about it as we close out here. And on Friday, we are going to have, I think Chip Paul is on Friday, who's going to talk about healthcare and where healthcare is going in the nation and the state today. And you're going to want to see that. And then in the afternoon at 1:00, we have a special with Katie Smith, who's going to come on and talk about what's been going on with Preston. And yes, it's true. The conference is moving, Earl's daughter, February 26th to the 28th. It just was not going to work in November. We just could not get it done. So we're going to try to do that. Oh, and shout out to Ty, Dr. Pelham's husband. He did qualify in the circuit finals in bareback rodeo.
Hey, there we go.
Way to go, rodeo man. All right, good. So glad to see that. So yes, the conference is moving, and we will have a special with Katie on at 1:00 on Friday. You won't want to miss that, because if you've been following Preston's story, all I can say is probably since it's Friday and it's 5:00 somewhere, have a drink, because otherwise you're just going to get super mad and try to hit something. So maybe have a drink to calm you down, but watch for sure. All right, everybody, we will see you again on Friday morning at 9 and Friday afternoon at 1. And until then, have a great day.